Hi, friends. It's Stephanie Kirk. I'm coming to you today from Fiveable to talk about rhetorical analysis introduction paragraphs. They're super important for a lot of reasons. Are you guys excited to talk about it with me? All right. So what I have for us today is my last stream, we did something a little bit different and tried to create a more interactive element. And so if you notice over in the chat, you have like that way. It's weird because it makes it backwards when we're filming. But when we go over in the chat, you got a little link there. So if you want to click that link, that's going to bring you into our lesson. And this will just kind of let you follow along. So if you're in that lesson already, on the top of your corner on your screen, you should be able to see a little black arrow down. Do you see that little black arrow down right here? This arrow? So if you click into that arrow, it's actually going to let you use the notes feature. So you'll have a copy of this that you can just email to yourself. So it's super cool. So you just kind of click on the arrow and then pick your notes, and then you can email it to yourself. So that was something that a lot of people thought was pretty neat last time. So that way you'll have the whole presentation there. And then I've got some links and stuff that I'm going to share out with you. And so you'll have those too. And we will always have in our report, you'll always see a lazy student. And that'll be me because I'm operating from my iPad to kind of see and share with you what you guys need. But this is just a neat interface to help us with our, so that we can have fun communicating back and forth. So are you ready? All right, let's go. As we get started, I wanted to remind you, this is another Think Fiveable production. Of course, we are here for you, helping you in your journey toward a 5. So we're going to get you there. Make sure you're following us on social network. At the end, I'll give you my personal social network information, but we do want you to join us so that you can kind of see what we're at, follow along, give us suggestions. Take a picture of your stream tonight, tweet it out. It'll be great. See if you can get one of those awkward moments where I'm in the middle of saying something when you screenshot it. Those memes are always the best, right? Like you love to do that, don't you? Secret memes of your teacher. So here's what's in store for you tonight. On Wednesday, we do have current events with Brandon. He's pretty cool. I'm actually going to use a piece of information that I learned from him, and he's a student, so it's pretty cool. And then on Monday, the 4th, you'll come back here with me. We're going to talk about body paragraphs for rhetorical analysis. If you guys join, I'm actually going to use the exact same prompts so that you'll be able to see the introduction put together with the body paragraphs, and that'll be really cool, I think. So are you guys excited about that? So we're going to have 2 examples with each of these streams, so you'll be able to see them. We do have another couple of them that we're going to look at and kind of add in there. We are looking for your feedback on a regular basis. So at the end of this stream, I do have the Google form for some feedback. So if you have some specific questions, topics you want us to cover, let us know. We can join those in and add those in along the way. So our learning intention tonight is that through the use of the rhetorical Precis, I will be able to write a thorough rhetorical analysis introduction paragraph with a defensible thesis that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. So I want you to think about this learning intention for just a second. Do you recognize this last part? With a defensible thesis that analyzes the rhetorical choices of the writer. That's exactly what's on the new rubrics. So making sure you get your point, our learning intention tonight is going to go exactly there. Okay. So quick question for you. Based on our learning intention, what is your personal goal for tonight? What are you hoping to walk away with in, the next 52 minutes? What is your goal? Okay, to learn an AP level introduction paragraph. A starting point. Starting points are very important. Sometimes that's the hardest part of the rhetorical analysis. How to format an introduction with a defensible thesis. Another minute there. What is actually required? Pacing. We actually are going to talk a little bit about pacing tonight. So that will be helpful. So we all have goals that are just a little bit different, but they're all aligned with exactly what we need to be thinking about in order for us to score well on the rhetorical analysis. I'm super excited about that. So let's look at what we've got going on. So first of all, were you guys able to, if you guys went on and looked at the prompts, this is what we're going to be focusing on tonight. Okay, so this is the 2018 prompt. And the reason that I'm going to focus on this one with you tonight is because, well, on the new rubrics, and I say the new rubrics because the old new rubrics came out in, at the beginning of, for us, the school year. We'd been in school for a few weeks, but the new ones came out at the end of September. So this is one of the ones that is used with that. But quick question for you. I'm just curious. Did you see and were you able to access the files for tonight's stream in time to review them? So I put up some links there for you. I gave you a worksheet actually in case you wanted to take some notes as you went through. And I'm just kind of curious, what did you guys see with that? Okay, just one more minute there. Did you guys in the chat, as people following along in the chat, did you guys go on the Fiveable and look and see what those documents were in advance? Okay. This is pretty fascinating. So I can look at it and I can kind of see what that is. A couple of people didn't quite get their answer in, but that's okay. It looks like we didn't know that was an option. So that's great for me, learning point for me. What I can do is I'll email those out. So I usually, if you're following with my streams and you follow me along, I send an email after the stream with any of the links in it, but I could definitely send it out like the day before or something so that you guys have access to that and you don't have to go back to Fiveable. The only catch would be if you weren't registered in advance. So I can definitely see to it that we get to do that because I think that's kind of helpful when you kind of know what you're looking at before you get there. So opening up a couple of links for you. Those of you guys who are in the interactive one, it should have opened up for you in a new tab. You now have the AP English Language and Composition. So if you just click on the open the web page, it'll pop up. I'm not going to click on that on this computer just because you guys are following along with me in the presentation. But that does let you see what the prompt is. And of course, rhetorical analysis question number, anybody remember? 2. It's question number 2. So that would be what you're looking at in the 2018 bundle. And then another resource that I stole from a push teacher actually in Fiveable is a worksheet, a rhetorical analysis worksheet. So you can actually come into that. And if you have any notes that you want to add to it, you can kind of plan through it. It has the links there as well. So it's taking a minute to load. But this does have the links there as well. So you can kind of see what that is there. Okay. So just a couple of resources that I think are going to be helpful for you. And then we're ready to get started. So in this stream tonight, we're going to talk about these ideas. We've talked about our learning intention, the goal that we're going to be able to write a defensible thesis that analyzes the writer's choices. So the rhetorical things that happen to get to that meaning. But the first thing I want to do is just kind of quickly review what is rhetorical analysis. And what are the FRQ expectations? And Mia, this is you said you wanted to work on pacing. So this is going to be where we talk about pacing and that total time. Do you guys know what's the recommendation per essay on the assessment? What's that number of minutes? Do you remember? Think about it. 40 minutes. 40 minutes. So then we're going to look at reading and annotating the prompt. And that's going to be important because I'm sure if you haven't experienced it yet, you're going to get to a text in your class where you don't have the background knowledge, like you are missing it for whatever reason. And that's totally okay because we are going to show you how to analyze that prompt and use the information there to give you the context that you need because AP is super cool. They actually give us that information when they build that prompt. And then we're going to look at the IDA and the TOBY writing plans. You can do both. You can do one or the other, but I definitely recommend a plan before you jump into writing that essay. It just helps to seal the deal and put all those pieces together. And then we're going to end out looking at the Rhetorical Precis, and I do have another resource for you there at the end. So you will get a Rhetorical Precis planning guide that you can use to plan your rhetorical analysis introduction paragraph. So that's a lot. Are you ready? Okay. So what is rhetorical analysis? Well, rhetorical analysis is the process of breaking down the complex parts of the text and analyzing those individual parts in which the way that they kind of interact and that they impact the meaning, the purpose, and audience movement. Now, I like to specify audience movement because there's a difference between I'm talking to the graduating class versus I want the graduating class to go out and blank. So you have your audience, but you also want to think about what that movement is. What is the desired outcome from it? This is driven by the rhetorical situation, of course. It has elements that create the rhetorical appeals in there. But again, you're not going to write paragraphs that says the author uses ethos because that will not go well for you. Some teachers use this idea of DIDLS. If your teacher uses that, it is diction, imagery, details, language, and syntax. And so you can kind of use those, and we're going to look at some of that tonight too. And then looking at the choices that build effective communication. So it's not just breaking down that text. When you write your rhetorical analysis, you have to be able to build in that effective communication as well. So that's a lot. Absolutely. Okay, so the question was, can I repeat what DIDLS stands for? So it is diction, imagery, details, language, and syntax. And I can actually write down a little note here, and I will put that in the email that I send out as well. So it's just kind of a neat thing for me to take notes so I can remember to do everything I tell you guys I'm going to do. Hey, no problem. We were actually talking about how we probably need a stream for all of the AP acronyms that are out there. Okay, so I'll include that there for you. All right, so here's an example for you to kind of look at and see. Now, I understand that you can't read this prompt, and that's okay. It's from 1992. This prompt it's included when if you go to Fiveable, you'll be able to see it, so you can read the whole thing there. But the thing I want you to see is this person clearly read, right? Like when you look at it, there is no doubt. There's reading, there's a writing plan. It looks like they tried to prioritize things. Look down at the bottom. You've got the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. So they're kind of outlining what they're gonna see and what they're gonna talk about. So this just lets you see an example of an active rhetorical analysis. Now, obviously, you're not gonna have all these colors on the AP exam. You get your pencil and you get a blue pen and you get a black pen. So I always tell my students, bring them all, because if you're used to highlighting, or if you're like me, I love glitter pens. If you're like me and you're like, oh, I love my glitter pen, and you want to see that difference in color, use the pencil, the blue, and the black to help you along the way. Okay. So I'll show another example here in a minute. But what are the expectations? So if we look at the course and exam description from AP, we can see that students are given a passage of approximately 600 to 800 words, which really isn't a lot, even though it sounds like it is. And you're going to analyze the writer's rhetorical choices, and it assesses your ability to do a few very specific things. And this is what I love about AP. They want to tell us exactly what they want us to do. So the first thing is we need to respond to the prompt with a thesis that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. So if your teacher talks about like open thesis statements versus closed thesis statements, if you're supposed to, in your thesis, include the writer's rhetorical choices, you need to be a little more closed than open. So you might want to look at that tweak on the new rubrics. Next, select and use evidence to support your line of reasoning. Now, when you do that, you've got to pull it from all over. If your evidence comes from paragraph 1, does that communicate that you read and understood this college level text at a college level? Not so much. So you want to go through it and look at the whole thing and then select and use the evidence from the beginning, from the middle, or from the end. I love to look at where there's a shift in the text. So go through and see where something changes. And we're going to see a few of those in the text we look at tonight. And another thing you can do is look at it through rhetorical function. So once you go through and you analyze it, you can think, okay, what's the point of all of this? Well, all of these things, they may not be in chronological order in the text, but all of these things are intended to get you thinking about your personal experience in this avenue. All of these things may not be in chronological order, but all of these things are intended to get you to think about what the world would be like if you did this. And so you can kind of see how that would be organized in a paper. The next thing is demonstrating an understanding of the rhetorical situation. So there's two rhetorical situations you want to think about. The first one is of the paper, because clearly that's the one that you're going to analyze. But the second one is your rhetorical situation in your paper that you are writing. So there's a little bit of like meta there. The last one goes without saying because everybody expects you to use grammar and punctuation. So those are your expectations. So when we move forward a little bit, the question becomes, becomes reading and annotating the prompt. So as you go through and you look at what this looks like, I've got another example I want to show to you. But with the pacing that we looked at, I kind of make sure that I'm going through that because I had that pacing slide in and then I moved it. And I just want to make sure that I address that pacing with you. So if you're looking at 40 minutes in that whole entire thing, a lot of people say 8 to 12 minutes for you to read and analyze the passage. I encourage my students 8, no more than 10 to read and analyze it, because when you go back and you're trying to organize your plan for it, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So we're going to look at the parts of the process, and then we're going to look at how do you break this down. If I have 40 minutes and I spend 8 to 12 minutes, Ms. Kirk recommends 10, then that doesn't give me much time to go back and build it. A lot of people say 6 minutes for your introduction paragraph, and that you should spend about 15 to 18 minutes on the minimum 2 body paragraphs, 3 if you can make it work, and then just 2 minutes on a concluding paragraph. And you should reserve the final 2 minutes for going back, revising it, and just kind of putting in some extra little tweaks. So we'll look at that kind of as we go through. All right. So when you are reading and annotating the prompt, it actually has 2 parts. So this process, it's critical, close reading that involves marking the text to help you track the claims and the evidence, the noticings and the wonderings that you have, the contradictions and the connections, and any other element that stands out while you're reading. But there are 2 things that come with your prompt. The first is the prompt itself. I like to use the acronym BAT the prompt. The second is the stimulus text. You want to read and annotate that as well. Some people like to think that maybe they can I will absolutely go over the question was, can we go over the IDA and the TOBY plan? And we are definitely going to do that. I actually have some examples to show you of that too, because I find that examples are very helpful. Hey, I got you, no worries. Okay, so with reading and writing and analyzing the prompts, I wanted to kind of show you this one for an example. Now, this is another text, another sample from student, but if you look up at the top in that corner, I wanted to put that little arrow in there because what do you see there? Carolina, you asked me about this a minute ago. Do you remember? Absolutely. So this student wrote at the top of the page the little DIDLS acronym, okay? And in going through it, kind of marked it out. So this student, their outline, their writing plan is right there. It looks like they're going to talk about diction and imagery, and looks like they're going to talk about language. They've got 2 elements. They've put it together, and they have a writing plan. And realistically, all they've done is analyze it. So you can kind of see there's a lot of little marks on here, but they clearly have a plan, right? So it can help you have a plan too. Okay, so that's what you're looking at when you're going through and you're analyzing it. But I want you to start out by analyzing and annotating the prompt itself. So this is the one we're doing. This is our prompt for the night, okay? So I'd like for you to annotate it for me. Can you do that? In 1997, the United States Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, gave the commencement speech to the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, a women's college in Massachusetts. Read the following excerpt from her speech carefully. Then write a well-developed essay in which you analyze the choices Albright makes to convey her message to the audience. So take just a moment, write on here, and let me see what you're thinking. It's an interactive practice. Those of you guys who, if you want to, you can put this over in the chat. Because realistically, I'm going to ask you what your task is. So it goes by quickly. I give my students about 3 minutes to analyze the prompt. So those of you guys who are following along, can you go ahead and submit what you have so we can kind of look at it? If you just hit that little blue submit button over on the side, it'll let me see what you did. Isn't this super cool? I love this interactivity. Okay, everybody submit. So let me see here. Live feedback on the spot. Look at this. Okay, so here we have an example of just kind of looking at some of the key ideas. And when you're going through and you're annotating a prompt, it can kind of be hard to figure out what you're doing. So we have this one for an example. We have this one for an example. And this one actually adds a little note. What are the techniques that Albright uses to attract the readers? So you can kind of figure that out. And then this one right here, look at this. There's a note. It's all women graduating. That must matter in some kind of way, right? If you analyze your audience, that's clearly there. So let's look at this example of how Miss Kirk recommends you analyze the prompt. Okay. Now, again, it's multiple colors, but that kind of stands out to you so you can see it. So when I say bat the prompt, I want you to look for background. I want you to look for their advice, and I want you to look for their task, okay? And there are a few things that I want to just kind of lay out here for you. First of all, the background. The background is whatever context that you've been given. What do you know? Like, you've got to have some kind of background. So you guys picked up on the fact that it's all women graduating. That's important context. Obviously, there's going to be some piece that connects to that in this text. And when you read it, you'll see that that's true. Okay. And then what is the advice that they give to you? And that one usually is, at least more recently, it's just read the following in a well-developed essay. Sometimes it does give you more than that, but generally you don't get a tremendous amount of advice in your prompt, but you do get a lot of advice out throughout the course of the semester. I'm imagining the FRQs in the AP Classroom are giving you advice. Your teachers are giving you advice. All kinds of information. They're giving you advice on what to do. And here's the big thing. If the person grading your essay tells you to do it, you should do it. It makes sense, right? The last thing is the task. So remember I said I want you to be able to tell me what you're doing. Note in this one, you have two things at the bottom. When you are trying to analyze the task, you might have more than one question to answer. So obviously, they do want you to look at the rhetorical choices that she's making. But you know what this prompt doesn't tell me? Sometimes the prompt will say to convey her message about, about continuing to fight through oppressive forces. That gives you a hint about what the message is. And in this one, it doesn't. So note down here for task, the first thing you have is number one, what is her message? You've got to be able to explain that. And then number two, how does she convey what that message is? So you've got two pieces with this one question, and we need to address both of them. Okay. Now, you guys, I'm going to, with the text being out there first, I thought maybe somebody might want to annotate it and send me a picture, but we're going to skip through that. I'm going to let you see, here is this example of this text being annotated. Okay. So I know it's small. Again, that's okay. You can look at it and you can kind of see what this looks like, but does it look like this person read and analyzed this text? It absolutely does. Again, heavy on the color. I do encourage color in my classroom. And I'm sure that you guys use color in your practices as well. And as we go through the year, I will stop saying, okay, you need to not use a highlighter today. You definitely need to just use a pencil, a blue pen, or a black pen. But there are little tricks that you can do so that you still have your annotations as you go through. So when you guys annotate the paper, does it look like this? Yeah. Okay, excellent. All right, next thing. On our list, we're going to go right back to what you guys asked about, the IDA and the TOBY writing plan. Okay, so first question I have is this. We're going to start with IDA. So what is IDA? What is IDA? I'm just curious. You have no clue? I think I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure I remember it, or my teacher tells me to use it. What is it? Okay, are you ready? We don't know what IDA is. That's okay. That is why you have Fiveable, because we're going to help you out with all of the little tips and tricks. Okay, so IDA is identify, decide, and analyze. Identify, decide, and analyze. So the first thing that you want to do is to just go back and look over your annotations. And as you look over those annotations, just decide what strategies are present there. Just identify them, okay? And then once you have identified them, you need to decide why the author has used this device. And as you look at why that device is being used, you'll start to kind of lump them into categories. And that's what we want you to do. Generally, you want to do it chronologically in your paper, but sometimes you can do it by intended purpose if you have some evidence from the beginning and the middle and the end that all serves the same purpose, okay? So the last step is analyzing it. This is where you're going to look at how the device impacts the audience, and not just how it impacts the audience, but how it creates audience movement. So when you go through your notes and you look at these three things, it can be enough to give you a good start on a writing plan if you have been practicing for a while. So here is an example of the IDA. Okay. Now with this one, I want you to notice the annotation of the strategies. This particular example, I think it's a very strong example because, and I personally do not do this often when I'm writing, but note right here, the person has the rhetorical triangle up here. They have the dominant strategies written here. So you can see like special topics, common topics, the rhetorical triangle, the modes of persuasion, Toolman. They've got a lot of things in here that they've noted, but then they've also gone down here with the support strategies, and look at this. They've identified that DIDLS again. So identifying these structures and strategies in the beginning as you go through is going to be what helps you, okay? So you'll be able to get through it. She says it's my favorite. I love that too, okay? So here you can see with our paper from tonight, here's another example. So you can kind of see that this one, they've identified the strategies. Obviously, this is the just kind of the end of the first page, because this one was like the longest rhetorical analysis prompt that I have seen in a long time. So now we have a limit. 600, 800 words. This one was unusually long, but note down toward the bottom, you can see that they've got the big picture to the small parts. They've got the numbers, the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, the diction shifts, the negative connotation. You can see the shift between we, I, they, and you, contrast of life goals of could do and actually do. So this has also gone through with that IDA strategy. Okay. So quick question. How might IDA help you? So you go back, you're in class tomorrow or one day this week, and you're trying to go through and you're trying to focus on your task. How might IDA help you? I always love seeing what gets posted. But it is kind of like a business plan, right? You work it through the business. It gives you a way to begin analyzing the passage. Absolutely. I can stay focused on the 3 main aspects instead of getting overwhelmed. Yes. And, that is such a huge part of it. Like if you can just stop and go back to this one thing, that can really help you out. Okay. That's super fun. All right. So what about Toby? What about Toby? No clue what it is. I think I've heard of it, and my teacher tells me to use it. I bet you're not surprised. We don't know Toby either. Now, okay, so this one was kind of a trick question. Actually, so was IDA. So if you're following Fiveable, the IDA plan is actually from Brandon. And I had not broken it down to that level before, but he referenced that in one of his previous streams looking at rhetorical analysis tips and tricks. And that was one of his tricks. So follow Fiveable. And Toby, a lot of teachers use Toby to help with an outline plan. Okay. And so this is something that even in my class, we're going to be looking at this too. We want you to have your thesis and your outline and your big idea. And this is actually a trick that a lot of teachers use. Apparently it was part of an AP strategy from a teacher training, and I learned it from Catherine. So we're all here at Fiveable working to kind of come together and help you out with the tips and tricks that are really going to be the best. And so Toby is the thesis statement. So the first step there is to create a sentence that is solid. It needs to be defensible. It needs to analyze the rhetorical choices that the writer is using. Next is to outline it. So quickly jot your ideas to help you plan your written response. Okay. Now, full disclosure, not a full sentence outline. Okay. We are not looking for you to write a full topic sentence here because that's going to take away minutes from your essay. But if you just have like a little bullet note, it's going to help you figure out what you need to do. Okay. So that's tremendously important. Next is a big idea. This is going to go into your conclusion. It's the lasting impact of the text overall. It's the message that makes it still worth studying and reading and rereading. If there's a call to action, this is going to be kind of in that place. So your Toby is your thesis, your outline, and your big idea. So here, I'm going to show you this one again. Look at the top in the blue up here. Look what you have. Although she is aware of the perception of her as a feeble woman, Queen Elizabeth is able to build confidence and energize the troops. Through defining herself as a strong leader and reassuring them of the future rewards, the audience becomes unified at just the right moment. And then you can kind of see over here, these are some strategies from some readers that the student is kind of harping on to. He wants to introduce the strategy, looking at the summary, and then the body needs to have the topic with the purpose and the strategy. So you can see this person has maybe a different outline from what you might come up with or what I might come up with. But remember, this is the same one you can kind of see down here where they numbered out those strategies. So in two separate places, you can see that they have the outline, But right here, you got your thesis statement, and it definitely gives you that big idea. So I think that's helpful. What do you guys think? Pretty helpful information? Okay. So here's another example. This is the example with our text of the night. And so you can kind of see here, again, the annotations on the side. So you got the circles that are in there. You can see some underlines, you see some highlights, some notes on the side. And then you have the amazing Toby. Seizing a celebratory moment of all female college grads, Albright is able to build from contrasting successes and continued efforts to specific anecdotes of women overcoming challenges as she progresses through varied points of view to emphasize the importance of continuing to reach higher regardless of struggles and setbacks. So, and it even looks, as you read that, you can kind of see it looks like there's a few places where the person's going through and kind of making some edits through it. So that's a great strategy there. And then look down here. The 1 and the 2 and the 3. The first thing they're going to do is an overview with diction, big picture to small parts. Then they're going to link the point of view into the examples and the anecdotes, which are that's a good strategy to do there. And then number 3, they're going to talk about the call to action with courage and persevere, that it's repeated in the text. So lots of little pieces that you can kind of see that can help you out with this text if you use the Toby plan. Okay. Now, this is a big, long thing. I always tell my students, once we get to the place where we're timing it and we're looking at it, on here, I'm totally okay with abbreviations. Note, this student did not put the title or anything in this. This looks just like what we're looking for a thesis statement. It's defensible. It talks about the strategies that are going to be used. It lets us see where she's going, and then there's a plan to kind of outline those steps. So that's a huge help there. Okay. So based on what you've seen now, how might Toby help you? What will Toby do to help you get through writing this essay? Help organize ideas? Absolutely. Having a plan, that is also a good thing. Know what to go? Absolutely. It'll give you an idea of what to go to, how to get there. It's like a thesis generator. It really kind of is. And not just a thesis generator, but by identifying those strategies and kind of putting them there, you have a plan for where it goes. And just putting those ideas on paper can really help. Sometimes I tell my students, you got to find what works for you. You might come up with your thesis statement first. Some people, when they bat the prompt, they actually go so far as taking that task part of bat the prompt and turn it into a fill in the blank thesis statement. And if that works for you, that's great. You can do that. But me personally, I need to know what strategies I'm looking at. So what I love about IDA is it lets me go through, it lets me annotate, it lets me bring in those key parts, and then I build that into where I'm going because I know what strategies I'm going to look at, and that's going to help me get to my thesis statement. And note, the thesis statement in these examples does include what the purpose is or what the message is that the speaker is trying to get across. So kind of a big deal, right? Of course it is. All right, so you are at the place you have been waiting for all semester long, the Rhetorical Precis. So want you to think about it as you kind of go through it. I wish I had put this in there like kind of as a survey to just kind of see who all is using it. But the Rhetorical Precis actually came from long ago. If your school is an AVID school, AVID has a Rhetorical Precis outline that they use. A lot of colleges use the Rhetorical Precis as an outline too. So if you go after this, you're like, man, I'm going to learn more about the Rhetorical Precis, and you just Google it in there, you're going to find all sorts of information. And it's a great place to get started. But caveat here, AP does not necessarily like the idea of formulaic writing. So we want to look at the Rhetorical Precis, bring it in and make sure we get it where it needs to be and have the key components, but then we want to break away and we want to be free to write on our own. And so I have some examples here for you tonight. Isn't that exciting? So here's the rhetorical pricing. Okay. So remember, if you're on that interactive element and you hit that, if you didn't do it before and you want to do it now, you can go through and you can hit this little arrow and you get the notes and you'll have it. You don't have to do that because, I'll send you an email and give you that. But I do have for you a resource on the rhetorical pricing. It's just a little planning guide. You can print it out, make a copy of it, use it as a template, use it in your classrooms, share it with whoever needs it. Okay. Because we're here for each other and we're here for you. So the rhetorical pricing is going to help you out because oftentimes what we see as teachers is you guys know how to write a summary. Like you've been summarizing things when you didn't even have to, like academically and socially, you have summarized just everything. Okay. So you can do that. That is not what you need to do in this essay though. We know what it says. The AP readers, they know what it says. It's your job to analyze how it says it, to let us see your thought process about that text. We need to know that A, you read it, and B, you understood it. So you're able to figure out all of that rhetorical situation. But we need to see what you think about those pieces and how they come together as well. So there's a lot that comes into this one piece. So with the rhetorical pricing, it has 4 parts, okay? So the first part is, what is it, okay? When you're writing your rhetorical pricing, which is going to be your introduction paragraph, you have to tell me what the text is. I need to know. And then you want to look at how it's given. How does this idea get communicated? How does this piece fall into line? The next part is why. What is the purpose? What's the author's purpose here? What's the desired audience movement? What is supposed to happen? And then it's the to or for whom. And that's where you're going to talk about who the audience actually is. Now, I would caution you to remember that you have your primary audience and oftentimes you have your secondary audience. So that's kind of a big deal there too. So, okay, 4 parts. You have your what, your how, your why, and your to or for whom. So, in this, in order to get the thesis point, you have to make sure you have a solid, defensible thesis that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. So my question to you is simple. When you look at this format, is it going to give you an analysis of the rhetorical choices? If you're saying what it is and how it's given and why it's given, are you going to get that point? You'll get the point as long as you do it. Okay, it'll be great. All right, so question popped up here for me. How do we mention primary and secondary audiences in the introduction? So if you have a very clear situation of primary and secondary, then what you can very easily do is you can say addressing a primary audience of blah, 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 and reaching out to the secondary whatever, okay? Oftentimes, when you are looking at the audience, the goal is just to focus on the primary, especially if the text is older. But when we're looking at secondary audience, that would be something that is like if you have a letter, why is this letter being put out to everybody? Like a letter to the editor or something like that. So secondary audience does matter, but it's not always the biggest point unless it's a very, very private document and you're trying to figure out where that falls apart. So questions on that? Did I answer it? And we are definitely going to be looking at how to bring in audience as we go through future streams as well. So, okay. Hey, you're welcome. That's what we're here for. Okay, so here is the example. So I want you to remember that the first part is the what, the second part's the how, third part's the why, and the fourth part is the to or for whom. And I'm going to give you an example with the scripted rhetorical pricing, okay? So when you Google rhetorical pricing, you're literally going to get a fill in the blank, okay? And this is what it is right here. I color coded it for you because I want you to see the difference between the scripted introduction paragraph and the modified free response, I know what I'm doing because I'm an AP student who doesn't need to go to remedial classes response, okay? So what is in his or her genre, title of work, name of the author, rhetorically accurate verb, that, and then the claim, okay? And remember, it's that and then a clause, so the claim has to be a complete sentence, okay? And then you've got the how. So the author supports or develops this by whatever. And then you've got that why element in there. So you have the purpose is blank in order to blank. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. where you have the purpose is to blank in order to blank, you do have a split infinitive, but it's okay. We're not going to worry about that too much, really. But what I don't want you to do is, I know that you were probably taught purpose is persuade, inform, and entertain. And I don't want you to just write down one of those words because there's so much more to it. I mean, even if you think about like a stand-up comedian's not just entertaining you, they're probably like making a stab at something to draw attention to something else. So you always want to address that purpose in order to gives you a way to talk about the audience movement, because that's a huge part too. And then the last thing is the to or for whom. Okay, so this is using that description of tone with, and then whatever it is. Okay, so you could say uses a motivational tone or a loving tone, or however you choose to address that. Okay, so tone words are something you really want to work on too. So just think on that. Okay, so here we go. Fill in the blank paragraph. Ready? In her speech to the troops at Tilbury in 1588, Queen Elizabeth I explains that great rewards will come to those who have the courage to stand and fight with England through the coming invasion. Okay, now, when you're looking at this, you see exactly what I told you were going to see. This is who it is. This is what it is. This is, we got the year there. Heard that clause. She explains. Great rewards will come to those who have the courage to stand and fight with England through the coming invasion. Then you have the next piece. She develops this explanation by defining herself as a strong leader, even though she's female, who stands with them at war, and by reassuring them of their future rewards. Okay, so this was that first prompt, right? So then we have, that's the description of how she does it. This next piece. Queen Elizabeth's purpose is to address the concerns and fears of the troops in order to build their confidence and energize them as they move forward. Author's purpose, desired audience movement. She uses a motivational tone with the soldiers to assure them that they are ready for battle and to unify the country. So you have that statement of the audience right there brought in. Now, it sounds formulaic to me, and I don't know, maybe it's because I know that there's a formula there, but my hunch is that the other AP readers are going to recognize that this is a little bit formulaic as well, right? So let this be your starting point. So if you're brand new at this and you're really trying and you're trying to master it, use this to get you started, okay? But we have a long way before May. And the fact that you're here with me tonight tells me that you truly care about where you're going and that you're going to take some extra steps. So I have a challenge for you too. Are you ready for that? Okay. Here's my challenge to you. My challenge to you is to keep that first part, okay? You've got to introduce the text and the author, and you can easily do it with that whole formulaic in his or her genre and the title and the published year, the author's name, and then if you have any background, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, and then whatever their claim is, okay? So keep that, because you've got to do the author and the text intro immediately from the beginning. But then you've got that how part. Explain the strategies that you noticed. You don't have to use a fill in the blank. You're smart enough to do this. Just give a general idea of strategies. Now, do not say that, the Albright uses ethos, logos, and pathos in order to move the people to thinking that they should continue to fight through and overcome the setbacks they will face. Okay? That's not going to get you anywhere. I also would say that if you're starting out and you're saying uses diction, language, and syntax, that's probably good too. Like, that's a great place to start. We're looking that you have devices and that you're moving forward. But don't shortchange yourself. As you go through and you start to recognize other elements, use the other elements. Use higher up elements. Challenge yourself to do that. Seek more in the text. Don't stop just because you happen to notice that there were some pretty powerful connotative words in the passage. Okay? Look for other things. Fortunately, you don't have to name the strategy. It's okay if you don't know what Zeugma is. Lots of people can't even pronounce it. But if you know it and you know that's it, throw it in there. That's fantastic. But you don't have to name the strategy anymore. So keep that in your back pocket. Okay? All right. So Now I have the same paragraph rewritten using the second idea instead of the fill in the blank, okay? But I stuck with the colors because I want you to be able to see how much better it sounds, okay? So listen to this. In her patriotic speech to the troops at Tilbury, 1588, Queen Elizabeth I highlights her faith in their ability to defend England and promises that great rewards will come to those who have the courage to face the pending invasion. Although she is aware of the perception of herself as a feeble woman, Queen Elizabeth is able to build confidence and energize the troops by standing with them as a fellow soldier at war. Through defining herself as a strong leader and reassuring them of future rewards, the audience becomes unified at just the right moment. Like, whoa. There's a huge difference there, don't you think? Realistically, when we look at what this is, what do you notice about where it comes from, about if the Precis is going to help you? Like, what do you see? What do you see? What do you notice? What's going to happen to your rhetorical analysis if you use the Precis segment to help you out? Take just a minute. All right, you got it? How is using the rhetorical Precis going to help you? So if you want to, if you're not following along on our interactive element, you're welcome to answer in the chat. Okay. I love honesty. I really do. It won't trap me in a crappy format I can't remember. And you know what? I have had students tell me that before in a variety of places. They're like, I just knew that I had to use this Schaefer model and I couldn't remember what came after this. Or I have all sorts of stuff like that I see as a teacher and experiences like that. This is great too. It's a template for your introduction paragraph. It's your job to make it sound pretty though. And I love the way that you've worded this because that's exactly right. It tells you what you need to have in it, but it gives you the freedom to build your own structure and to really look at it throughout the text. So you are building your writing and you're able to see what that looks like. So note the differences. I agree with you. This sounds more natural. This sounds like the person actually truly understood it. Now, true story, paragraph written by the same person. What you see is that the original paragraph is at the very beginning, okay? One of the strategies that I like to use with my students, and we'll use it a lot more as we go through in the second semester, if your teacher's not writing a lot right now, don't worry, don't stress out. It's probably because we didn't have the rubrics for a long time, and then we got the rubrics, and then they were like, here's some new rubrics. So if your teacher's kind of stalling on it and really focusing on identifying the claims and the evidence, if you're getting that instruction, then you're good. Because we've looked at a lot of like the process parts, but even in my room, we haven't done a lot of full length essays. We do a lot more of that the second semester and after Thanksgiving. So this is the same student just taking this format with the rhetorical Precis and then revisiting it. This is one of my favorite activities to do. Give them a prompt at the beginning and then go through the whole year of instruction. Give them the exact same prompt at the end. They'll say, did you mean to give us this? Yes. There's always a plan. And they're able to go back and look at their very first writing sample and compare that to the writing sample at the end when they have a much better idea. Like they're like, I kind of remember it, but I don't really remember it. And then they're able to see their actual growth. So it's a neat tool to kind of have. So same student, you can see that difference. So how do you feel about that? Better? That is super exciting. So I promised you a little template. So here you go. Uh-oh. Frowny face on my example. Can you guys see it on yours? The Rhetorical Precis planning sheet. Let me give you that. I will give you this link as well so that you'll have it. But I want to make sure that you have it. So with yours, I will put that in the email there too. Make a little note for myself. And get that fixed for you so that you can see that note as well. Hopefully that's just my Wi-Fi and you guys have it. Okay, I will get that for you. All right, so it is just the Rhetorical Precis planning guide. It does start with 2 sides. On the front, you do have some boxes there for you so that you can kind of see what that looks like. And then on the other side, you have the fill in the blank format. So you can get used to both of those as you go through it. So that should be super cool and super easy to help you out. All right, friends, it's it. We're at the end. It's come to the end of our time together. Tonight, this is another Think Fiveable stream. Great question. Okay, so the question was, do I need to send you your email or do you already have them? I actually have it. I'll send it right here through this. It'll come to everyone who was here tonight and everybody who registered who wasn't here. So even those guys will get the notes. It'll be great. So okay, what is the IDA? The IDA, so you said that you came in late, but I can bring that up here for you really quickly. Did you join the link that I sent out on the chat? So here's your IDA. So you can definitely pull this up and get the slides if you're a Plus member. But if you click this link real quick, then it'll give you that little black arrow up there at the top. You can click on that black arrow, and then from that arrow, you should be able to look at and see what we're looking at. So that should help you out. All right, you got it? Hit the little black arrow, it'll give you some notes, and then that'll just download the presentation for you. All right. So come back over here. Make sure we're doing this all right. You got your IDA now? Yes, I can put the slides in there as well. So you'll have your notes and then you'll have the link to the slides as well. So that will help you out. You'll have that. You'll have all of these pieces in there. And then of course, if you have any questions at all, pull on through here. Bring this back up for you right here. This is me. I'm on Twitter. So if you do have any questions, feel free. I'm at Kirk's Corner. So you can send me a little direct message. I'll get to you. You hear me say DM. So I'm like cool like you all. Send me a DM. I feel a little too old to say that, but you can send me something. I will get right back to you as soon as I can. I have my phone with me almost all of the time, but I do live in the mountains, in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. So if it's like, slightly balmy or blustery outside, the Wi-Fi might be on the fritz, but this is me. So any questions, you can come out. I'll send an email here in just a little while. And I do have a question for you. I want some feedback. We at Fiveable want to do everything we can to help you guys grow. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign out and leave this open for you. I do love seeing your feedback. Anything that you have for me, you can see that it does ask for your email address so that we can kind of go back and look at that with you. It's going to ask you about the stream that you attended. This is RA Introduction, so the Rhetorical Analysis Introductions. We just want to know if you felt like it did what you wanted it to do. Did it meet the expectation? What's something that went really well? What's something that could have been better? And then what do you think about using this interface? And then what other comments, questions, or concerns do you have? Now, so if you are interested and you would like, down there in that last questions about the comments and the concerns, if you would like to try using the 2018 prompt with Albright. If you would like to try to write an introduction paragraph using the Precis format, I'd love to send you some feedback, okay? So if you're using that and you're following it through, you can submit that here on my form and I'll get you some feedback. Deal? All right. Bye, friends. I hope you guys had a great night and that you learned very much. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Do remember, rhetorical analysis body paragraphs is coming up on the 4th, and we're going to be looking at these same 2 prompts. We're going to look at that Queen Elizabeth. We're going to look at the Albright. Okay? Have fun, you all. I hope you had a great night and you learned a lot. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. It says it's stopping. I'm not sure why it's not stopping. Well, this has never happened to me before. Okay, it literally is telling me I'm waiting for Crowdcast. So I will just answer any questions you have, anything at all while we get this to work out. I'm going to take a picture too.